The voice of health, freedom, and liberty, Robert Scott Bell.
This hour on the Robert Scott Bell Show, question, you're a parent. You decide you don't want your kid to be vaccinated, 1 or 10 or 100. You don't want it. Can the state come in and say, oh, wait a second, you don't want to do it. We're going to, hey, go see one of our doctors. Maybe he'll approve it. Maybe she'll approve it. You think that's the right place? Well, actor, comedian, Rob Schneider, he's a dad. He doesn't think it's the right place, and he's stepping out and saying it right. Appreciate him very much. Rob Schneider joins us here on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Rob, thanks so much.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me. This is an important issue about parental rights and how far the government can go in the raising of our children, and I think in choices that we make for the health and safety of our children. And one of the things is they don't tell you that there's potential side effects that they're supposed to legally. Every pediatrician has to tell you the benefits and the potential risks, but they don't tell you that, and that's something that maybe for parents out there who don't realize, hepatitis B happens in the first 24 hours of a child's life. Okay, as soon as the baby's born, they want to give a Hep B shot. But let me just tell you, unless the only way you can get Hep B is through dirty needles or for sexual contact. That's not going to happen for a 24-hour infant. It's this kind of lunacy that people need to be aware of so the parents can make the decision. Because here's the thing, a baby doesn't have an immune system. It's an external immune system that's the mother's breast milk. And there's also this happening, which is really, there are these toxins that are 4 toxins in these vaccines that are known to the state of California to be cancer-causing. There's formaldehyde, there's aluminum, there's mercury, and even if they say there's no mercury, there's mercury residuals in these things. So the idea that these babies can just take this toxic load, people have to do their research and have to make the decision to see, like, for instance, if the mother has hepatitis, then it's something to consider. Because if they're, then there might be. But if it doesn't, there's no possibility that the baby's going to get Hep B.
Well,
so why are they doing it?
Very, very important point to bring up, Rob, and very, very important question to ask, and still only a small fraction of parents are asking it. And I'm so appreciative that you're stepping up and speaking out. As a dad myself, I have a 7-year-old girl, a 12-year-old boy, neither of which have been vaccinated because of my history with vaccines as a child. We didn't know about these things. And I've talked to too many moms and dads that have been struck by tragedy in these things. I think fully informed consent is the least we should be asked for. And secondarily, when we decide as a parent, hey, it's not for my kid, we don't have to go get permission from a state-sanctioned doctor.
Right, and there's a lot of fear going out there. First of all, the reason that there's 49 doses of 14 different vaccines before the age of 6. Now, it's very important that parents know that once you do some research into this, they don't know when the blood-brain barrier ends. In other words, when you become an adult, when you reach a certain age, there's a barrier between the blood doesn't necessarily reach into the brain. But as an infant and as a child, there's no barrier there. So the toxicity that comes in, formaldehyde, aluminum, these are known neurotoxins and known cancer-causing agents that can cause real problems. And for those who say it doesn't cause problems, that is a complete, utter lie. Over $2.5 billion have been paid out in the last 2 decades to children who've been injured or have been to the families of the children who've died from vaccines. So this is something that's a real issue. And so for, let's say, parents who, the MMR shot, that's 3 shots. There's sometimes they'd like to do 7 or 10 shots to an 18-month-old, all in the same day, which is a real problem, potential real problem for a child. And let's say a parent wants to break those up. Let's say a parent does want to vaccinate. Well, then you can't do that. If you try to break those up, the doctor in your practice can kick you out of that medical practice and say, no, if you don't do exactly what we tell you to do, forget it. There's nothing in this bill, AB 2109, that's on the governor's desk, that prevents doctors from kicking patients out of their practice for wanting to stagger the vaccines or just eliminate one.
Sure. Rob, all my listeners in California, if you're not aware of this issue, this potential bill, AB 2109, that Rob's speaking out about, is stunning because, again, it takes you, the parent, out of the equation. And literally, you have to lay yourself on the mercy of a licensed doctor who likely is not trained in any of the things Rob Schneider is telling us right now. Now, Robin, where is it that you woke up? What happened? What was that stimulated your, let's say, search into this arena that so few tread?
Well, it's, the numbers start to become astounding. Once you meet the parents and children who have been injured by vaccines, you become, you want to become a soldier and fight and to help protect these other kids. Because the pharmaceutical industry and the doctors, it's a money grab, really.
Sure.
And but for the parents who've had injured children, they just don't want it to happen to somebody else. And they wish they could take that moment back when they made the decision to just trust the doctor. Because here's what happens. It's really done out of convenience. That's why they try to get so many shots so early to kids. Because when people first had kids, they go to the doctor a lot, and and then when the kids get older, they don't. And so it's for convenience, and it's also for profit. I mean, There are over 200 vaccines that are in development right now. Over 200. So believe me, let me just tell you, like, for people who don't live in California, I know you have a national show, but guess what? If this thing passes in California, you're next. They want to take away your exemptions. And California is going to be just like Mississippi and West Virginia, is the only 3 states, if this passes, the only 3 states that have no religious or philosophical exemption.
Yes, and they're trying to do that in New Jersey right now. We've got a lot of my listeners.
And New Mexico. Also in New Mexico. They're trying to take away your religious exemption. That's against the Constitution.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take away the word vaccine and you put in any other invasive medical procedure, any other one, and to say the state has to do this, I mean, you would say that that's just crazy.
Yeah.
So what you have is the real facts of the matter is this. These are normal childhood diseases, okay? Measles, chickenpox, they have a chickenpox vaccine now. Let me tell you, chickenpox is not a dangerous disease. It's a normal childhood disease. And here's what happens. When kids get these diseases, if they have a normal immune system, they're fine. Mm-hmm. And actually, a lot of kids have a growth spurt. Dr. Pavlevsky talks about that on Mercola.com, which is a very good website. It talks about, like, he's a pediatrician, trained pediatrician. He said when children get these normal childhood diseases, they're followed by growth spurts because there's inflammation obtained by these normal childhood diseases.
Yes.
So what we've done, we've traded normal childhood diseases for autoimmune diseases, childhood obesity, and autism. And I just don't think that that's a fair trade. And I think parents need to be the ones to make the decision for what's best for their kids. Because a lot of these shots, I got to tell you, like diphtheria, that's not an issue in America. And, people say, well, there'll be kids dying and stuff. Let me tell you, the mortality rates, if you look, and this is an actual book called Mortality Rates in the United States from the colonial times to 1970, which prove and show you that death rates for these normal childhood diseases, measles, mumps, rubella, whooping cough, these are completely receded or diminished to almost nothing by before the onset of this vaccination program in the United States. That's a fact. You can look that up.
Rob Schneider's on fire here. We love it. He's speaking our language here on the Robert Scott Bell Show today, talking about vaccines and AB 2109 specifically in California. But as he says, it's right. It's going to be duplicated across the country. Already in California, Rob, I covered this over the last couple of years in a largely Democratic legislature. And listen, I don't play the Hegelian dialectic. The Republicans and Democrats are equally at fault in many of these cases, but some people think the Dems are for the little people, yet they passed a legislation that would allow a 12-year-old to get injected with the Gardasil HPV shot without parental notification. They think a 12-year-old can consent. What the hell is that? To me,
that is the most egregious bill ever put into. I mean, you have to go back 100 years until, like, taking away rights from African Americans to, like, voting. That is like the craziest legislation I've ever heard of. Because here's the real side. I mean, let's say a child, and I've known women who've had their children who've had brain damage from this Gardasil shot. Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing about it is the two, 70%. The person who designed the Gardasil vaccine says that is wary of giving this vaccine to people because 70% of this of the HPV clears up on its own, and then in 3 years, in the first year, mm-hmm. and then in 3 years, 90% of this does. And so now they're advocating it to girls. And here's the thing: the girls can just have the shot without the parent knowing. And let's say there is a side effect, and then the girl goes home and has 105 temperature, and then the parents have no idea what happened. They don't know
exactly
when they go to the emergency room. And this has become law. So, I mean, this is how crazy it is. That's why it makes...
What happened to Moonbeam Brown? I mean, he used to be a lefty, and what is he doing? I mean, he sold out to the pharmaceutical industrial complex.
Well, exactly. But what happens is, I mean, it's really hard. I mean, I don't think, like, the medical, I could say the doctors, I mean, I think that they're indoctrinated into a system that they believe in so hard, and they believe in so much that they're not open to logic and reason, and, frankly, science. And because people, they say, look, and this is an argument I get all the time. I get two arguments.
Hold on, Rob. We're up against a break here. Rob Schneider is our guest here on the Robert Scott Bell Show. He's speaking such amazing facts and truth. I appreciate and respect him all the more for coming out and talking like this and about this very important issue. He's a parent. I'm a parent. If you're a parent, too, you got to keep listening to this, especially if you're in California, but all across this land. We are going to stand up for the rights here that we do on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Check it all out. The links are up. RobertScottBell.com. Back with Rob Schneider after this.
You're listening to the Robert Scott Bell Show. Willing to go where the truth takes him. Here's Robert.
Continuing now with Rob Schneider, a star of Screen, of course, a comedian. I still have scar tissue from laughing with your movie "Don't Mess with the Zohan." I'm sorry, that was hilarious.
Thank you. I still keep in touch with that goat.
Oh man!
And it's a goat, and there's another goat in Deuce Bigelow. I have to admit
that's right. And my wife,
something going on there.
My wife did not want to laugh, but she did too. So she has to admit it was hilarious. But anyway, I appreciate you not only your funniness.
I don't mind being a guilty pleasure, but some things like people, for whatever reason, I've been lucky enough to have been, that people have laughed at my movies and my TV shows, from Saturday Night Live to the movies with Adam Sandler. And I just think, for whatever reason, I've been very lucky. But I think it's important that people, I've been given a little bit of a mouthpiece for what fame I've achieved. And I'm just doing this to educate as much as I can, to reach out to parents who can be open-minded and to do the research for themselves. And because you're going to hear stuff, and you're going to hear stuff like this. And some of the arguments that I hear from doctors and from parents, frankly, who are worried about their children, they say, well, there's been over 20,000 tests to prove that vaccines are safe or whatever. Well, once you look at them, and I have, and again, Dr. Pavlesky is a very good doctor. You can look up Mercola.com. He's an actual pediatrician. And he brought up a really good point to me. He said this. He said that what they're doing in all those tests is they're comparing vaccinated kids with the population at large to see the side effects. But here's the deal. The population at large is 90% vaccinated. So you're comparing a group of vaccinated kids to a group of vaccinated kids.
Exactly.
So what we need to have that's not real science.
No.
We need 1,000 kids with a particular vaccine and 1,000 without. And they say, well, it's not fair to the 1,000 without. Well, I say it's not fair to the 1,000 with. And for the kids, for the people out there who are worried about, hey, well, I don't want my kid going to school with an unvaccinated kid. Well, I would just say to you, well, if your kid's vaccinated, what are you worried about?
What are you worried about? Exactly. Rob, how old are your kids?
I got a 23-year-old, and I got another baby coming any day now.
Okay, so this is going to be big time coming up again. So listen, I have two kids unvaccinated. Like I said, they're ridiculously healthy, and I didn't have that start because I was fully vaccinated as a child, although we didn't have as many back then. So I had to learn the hard way in my own life, but because of that, we become quite aware. All we're asking for and demanding, in fact, is the freedom to care for our kids the way we want to.
Exactly. And how old are your kids? And they're perfectly healthy, right?
Yep. 12-year-old son, 7-year-old little girl. And when we heard that chicken pox were happening in the neighborhood, we got the kids over to get them to chicken pox early. We know about natural immunity that strengthens them. It helps them to develop healthy adult immune systems without chronic diseases.
That's exactly right. I mean, what happens is there's information passed in these diseases. They're not just, everything in nature is there for a reason. And if you notice, anytime man tries to screw it up, it gets screwed up. Anytime man gets in the middle there. And so we have these, again, normal childhood diseases where kids have growth spurts after, and these things, they communicate and they teach the immune system how to react to stuff.
Yeah. And
it's important. And so what happens with the science, which is flawed, the idea of herd immunity isn't herd immunity is a flawed idea to begin with. The idea is to protect people who can't be vaccinated for medical reasons. If they have some immunological problem. The problem we have also is that you're not able to tell which one is
sure.
which.
And
we
you
don't know. There's no test.
And Rob, you don't get sick as a herd. You only get sick individually. And, of course,
exactly.
It's medical collectivism. Listen, I had Jenny McCarthy on this program a while back. We were talking about her journey because of her damaged child, and she had become quite an outspoken advocate on the vaccine issue and been attacked for it. She also admitted to me that many of her friends that are also Hollywood celebrities, big names, refused to speak up about it, even though their kids were damaged, because they're afraid for their careers. Do you have any concerns like this, or is that farthest from your thoughts here?
Well, I think the most important thing to worry about is children's safety and education. And no one should be afraid of knowledge or learning more or actually having real science behind these studies, because it's a house of cards. Because once you pull one card away, the whole thing is going to collapse. For instance, in the state of Washington, where they had this bill, which is dissimilar to the bill in California, because the bill that passed in Washington still has a religious exemption. So if you still have a religious belief, you can sign off. Here in California, you're going to have to go see a doctor, spend the money, and the doctor, each time, let's say that one doctor says no, he's not going to sign a letter saying you can, not vaccinate your kids. Then you're going to have to pay to see another one. And then there's a lot of doctors that, it's tough to get to, and for poor people, it's going to be very tough. And here's the deal. In the state of Washington, 77% of those kids who came down with whooping cough, 77% were all completely up-to-date and vaccinated.
What does that tell? What does that tell you about the efficacy of that vaccine? And they've admitted it as well. Although the pundits in the mainstream media that are paid very well on the high-level newscasts will parrot out whatever they're told to read.
Well, the truth of the matter is, even at the NIH, at the Center for Disease Control, I think it's the NIH, National Institutes for Health, have told the media, please don't report on negatively about vaccines. And
right.
She's gone on record saying that. So the thing is, what the pundits will say, and the pro-vacciners, and the Smith, GlaxoSmithKline, and Merck, and all these other places that these pharmaceutical companies that make vaccines will tell you, well, no, we just need more boosters. Well, the truth of the matter is, these are normal childhood vaccines. And they come in cycles, 3 or 4 years. It comes around. Again, if you talk to, pediatricians, this is a cycle that happens. Dr.
Yes.
Pavlesky will tell you this is a normal thing. And, the kids who are unvaccinated have less problems than the vaccinated kids.
That's very true. That's the comparative study, and there have been reports out of Germany on that. But as we know, there's an agenda here. We even know the CDC is involved. They'll embed people into Hollywood television and movie productions to make sure they have a slant that is pro-vaccine. It's shocking when people realize that.
It is, and it is shocking that the Democrats are the ones that are more behind this than the Republicans. The Republicans are at least open-minded to making individual rights issues, whereas the mandates and the lockstep behind each other. The Democrats have been, I'm very disappointed in the Democratic Party doing this. And what happens is, I'm glad in a way, because if they weren't so egregious, and they weren't so overstepping in this government coercion and stepping on individual rights and constitutional rights, our religious rights, in our Constitution, to make these choices for a religious exemption. If they weren't so egregious and overstepping, it wouldn't wake people up to the potential dangers of this. That's why we're talking about this.
Absolutely.
So in a way, I think it's good, and people need to step up, and they need to get educated, and then to talk to their other neighbors, because I want people to make a decision. Because when I talk to people who have injured children for vaccines, all they say to me is, I just wish I could go back to that day and made a choice of not having 7 or 10 shots to my 18-month-old.
Well, Rob, what you're doing is so very important, and my respect for you is immense. The moment I heard you were speaking out on this issue, I appreciate you dropping by to keep this going. And if there are any updates, we'd love to get you back on, because I'm with you on this. It's the most important issue that we can do in protecting the kids legitimately. So everybody check out Rob Schneider, whatever his next film or TV thing is. Man, he's a good guy. We know it now right here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Rob Schneider. More powerful healing coming your way on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Check it all out. RobertScottBell.com. Give me a call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 866-939-BELL. Back after this.
You're listening to the Robert Scott Bell Show.